Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Becky.
Hey, Kiana.
Um, I was stressing out,
Okay.
but I'm glad you saw my text.
I'm sorry that I stressed you out. I didn't mean it.
It's okay. It wasn't too bad. I was like, I gotta be there. I have one job. I have to do
I think stress is just becoming my middle name at this point.
it.
Good evening.
Hello, Dr. Edgy. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
So otherwise, I'm on STEMI call. I'm on STEMI call today. So in case I get called, I have to rush out.
Okay. We're recording it, so you can come back and watch the rest of it later if you end up getting called in the middle.
Dr. Kumi has a question.
I'm sorry. I was not paying attention to the screen.
It's
Dr.
okay.
Dr. Kumi, what's up? Moses, can you hear us? We can't hear you if you're talking. We still can't hear you if you're talking. It doesn't look like you're muted, but we can't hear you. Dr. Kumi, do you want to try to type it in the chat, whatever your question is, because we can't hear your voice. Can you hear us? Okay, he can hear us. That's good.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Or did he mean to? Did you mean to put your hand up? I did just put in that I will be monitoring the chat, and if they have questions, they can raise their hands.
There.
Oh, okay.
He put it back down. Okay. It is 6:01, but I do want to wait just a couple more minutes because I know some people had a meeting that ended right at 6. So I want to give it just a second before we get started to try to see if we can get everybody here for this.
And Dr. Kumi says his sound isn't working for him for some reason.
Okay. As long as he can hear us, I suppose that's good. And he can chat his questions if he has them. Hello, Nafisa. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And Elizabeth, how are you? Sahar, hello.
I'm
Chica,
good.
hi.
I wasn't able to get into that the site, the training site, because I was trying to set up my password and then that Zap password
Oh,
system came up and then it wouldn't allow anything and I don't know where to click, how to click.
we did have some technical issues with it today. If you want to try to get back in now, we fixed it about maybe an hour, hour and a half ago. If you were trying before that, it's just recently been fixed. If you want to try
Okay.
again. If not, you can follow along tonight and then we can work on the tech issues another day. We're in the middle of going from the test site to the live site and it's been throwing some things off. So we'll do the best we can.
Okay.
But we're going to record this session as well. So we're going to post it on Canvas and we can come back to it and refer back to it if we need to. Well, it looks like the majority of people are here. More people are coming in. Never mind. More people are coming. 2, 3, 4. Only 4 people are not here that because some other people notified me that they were going to be absent today. So I would say let's go ahead and get going. And as people join, again, we can catch them up or they can watch the video recording later. So thank you everybody for coming to this training session for our software. We chose to go with the software that's used by most medical schools across the country for this level of enrollment, which is called AMP. It's by Zap Solutions. They have some other products out there, but this one is the one that's used mostly by medical schools. They have some other products that are used by other levels of institution. So our admissions coordinator, Alexandria Little, or Alex, as we lovingly call her, was our project manager for this. She got on and built this and then changed it because we, the admissions committee, kept changing our minds on things. She kept rebuilding it, and she's just been a rock star with getting this set to the way we want it to be set. And she's going to walk us through that training today. So she's going to share her screen. You can follow along on your screen. If you have logged in to AMP yourself with that temporary password, feel free to follow along on your own screen. But it might be hard to watch 2 screens at once is my only thought. So long as you have logged in, you can follow along with her. And then I'm going to stay on the call. I can walk you through some things or she can walk you through some things after this session is over and we stop recording just to sort of get individual things worked out, the kinks worked out. The other thing is that we're recording it on purpose so that we can post it to Canvas. So I saw that most of you have been into the Canvas site already. Last week, about a week and a half ago, actually, I sent you credentials to log into Canvas, which is the learning management system that the university uses. So it's the place where students log on to do their coursework. and our students will log on to do their coursework. So if you remember back in the olden days, like me, you got a syllabus, a paper syllabus, and you had a 3-ring binder, and you had a textbook, and you had, all the things. Maybe you had a laptop if you went to school more recently, but everything was sort of in different places. Nowadays, we use these learning management systems and everything is online. And so you just get into your learning management system and your syllabus is there, your courses are there, you submit your coursework through there. You don't even turn in papers anymore, or to date my real age, blue books anymore. Everything is online. So we did the same thing with Canvas. We built a whole course for you. It has all of the resources you need. It has training. There's FERPA training and bias training and all of those things. And I see that some of you have been working through all of those. The big one I need you to get in to that system and do is the conflict of interest statement. There's a privacy statement that we must sign every year. And that's by LCME standards. We all have to sign this recusal policy. So we have that. And if there's anything that is a conflict of interest or a confidentiality issue, we have to boldly state that so that everyone on the committee is aware that we have a conflict or there's some sort of confidentiality issue that we need to address. So that needs to be signed. So you will download it from Canvas, sign it, or make it a PDF and sign it electronically. I don't care which. And then re-upload it back to Canvas. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you can't figure it out, let me know and I'll walk you through it. So with that said, you'll also find this recording there. These recordings take about a day to process before we can actually access them. So it won't be on tonight. So if you want to go back over stuff tonight, it won't be there. But I'm hoping by tomorrow night, I have it posted so that you can go with your free time over the weekend and rewatch this and practice these things. The first time we're really going to need to use it is going to be in about 5 weeks, I'm guessing, maybe 6. If you don't know this thing I'm about to say, I'm going to either make you get very excited and cheer or have a big gulp moment and have anxiety. And that is the number on the board today is 28 days. 28 days until we believe we will receive our preliminary accreditation and go live. And that's when our work actually begins. So I'm going to turn this over to Alex and let her share her screen and walk through this. Kayana is here. Kayana Robinson, Dr. Robinson is our recruitment coordinator. She's going to monitor the chat and monitor hand raises. So don't just unmute and start talking. Either use the chat or raise your hand. And it's okay to interrupt in the middle of this if you want to address something right now, or you can save your questions to the end. Either way, we don't care. We just, if you are afraid you're going to forget your question or we're going to get lost in the weeds, just go ahead and either raise your hand or put it in the chat and Kayana will help us navigate your questions and comments. So Alex, are you ready to begin?
I am so ready to begin.
Excellent.
I hope y'all are all doing well this evening. As Dr. Wise said, my name is Alex Little. I'm the admissions coordinator for the medical school. You should have all gotten an email from me sometime yesterday afternoon with your AMP credentials. If you tried to log in before about like 5 o'clock today, you probably weren't able to access AMP. That is, knock on wood, resolved now. As some of you probably heard Dr. Wise say, we are moving into like our live environment. So there's some like technical bumps. We're working through them. If you still can't get in after this evening, please reach back out to me and Dr. Wise, and we are happy to help get you rolling. But I'm going to go ahead and start sharing here. Okay. Are you all seeing this login screen? Beautiful. I love a background soundtrack. We can get some music going too. That hypes me up. So like I said, if you want to like follow along on your own screen, you are more than welcome to. If you want to just like watch me do this, whatever, whatever floats your boat. It's your world. I'm just walking you through it. So you should all, if you are logging into AMP this evening, have this screen tab. You will have access to the rest of these sections later on. But for the purposes of our training over the next couple of weeks, we're just sort of starting off with like where you'll be beginning. When you log into AMP and come to this screen tab, you will see a list of all of the applicants who have been assigned to you. You will get an email. It'll go to your Methodist email when we are in the live production environment, notifying you like, hey, you have applicants to review, log into AMP and do that. As you can see from this screen, you have access to a couple of different pieces of information, like their AMCAS ID, their name, their email address. You can see when it was assigned and the submit date. So to access a more detailed view of the candidate's profile, you're going to click into this view button right here under the form column. And this will take you into the evaluation screen. Now, there is a couple of different pieces of information here. You can see on the left-hand side here, you can see things like the applicant's name, their AMCAS ID. This will also show you their highest valid MCAT and when they took that highest MCAT. When we go live, this will be from the last 3 years, and we do take their highest score. It shows you their total GPA as calculated by AMCAS, which we'll talk about more in a couple of minutes. The application type, so if we ever move to do early acceptance or things like that, you'll see that populate here. But for now, it's just going to be a regular MD. You'll see their legal state, and you will also see their preliminary rank calculation. So that rank calculator that y'all have seen, it's those first 2 categories, so the academic performance index and the regional index. And I believe this rank is out of 980 for the preliminary stage. Dr. Wise is giving me a yes. So I'm doing good with my numbers tonight, y'all. So a couple of things looking on this right-hand side here. You'll start off in this Documents tab. And there's a couple of different things you can see here in regard to their applications. So you can see there's an AMCAS summary, and that just sort of gives you a bird's eye view of what the applicant entered into AMCAS. There is an AMCAS detail. This is what you will be entering into when you're doing your real evaluations of candidates. This is going to be a really granular breakdown of the things that they entered. You can look at the summary for really quick stuff, but like I said, for your actual evaluation, you're going to want to operate in the detail screen. This secondary application here is their secondary application. It's where you'll see their essay, their proficiencies, and a couple of other items. And then this application proficiencies option here at the bottom is where you can see the coursework that they entered into their secondary application. Again, I would just be operating from this secondary application screen for the most part. But if you ever just want to sort of focus in on that coursework piece, you're more than welcome to. When we are in the real live AMP world, this references tab right here will have all of their letters of recommendation or their committee packet, what have you, that will pull from AMCAS automatically. Because we are in a test environment, there are no letters of recommendation right now, but you'll see it at a later time. And if there's anything else that we've added, you will see that under this other documents column here. Any questions so far? I want to make sure I pause. When I clicked into this for the first time, I was like, oh my God, there's too many buttons. Clicking into this Flex tab here at the top, this is where if there are any particular notes that we or that Dr. Wise have made about a candidate, this will populate here. Sometimes there won't be anything underneath this, but it's important that you check just to make sure that we aren't missing any important pieces of information. And then there's this timeline tab. This is where you can see a graph of their experiences that they entered into their AMCAS application. So you can see it's laid out by year and month and all of that good stuff. You can see a more detailed description down below. But there's another way that you can view this, which we'll talk about here in a second. So I'm going to click into, if you're following along, the AMCAS detail option. So the way you view that is just with this view button here on the left. And there are lots of things that you can see in here. You'll automatically sort of come into this identifying information tab, and that's just going to include like some biographical things, right? Like how many languages do they speak and where do they live and their contact info. This additional information tab is again where you can see some of those more detailed biographical pieces. So this will include like if they were first generation or if they were low income, if they have military experience. You can see things like their family income level if they entered that. If we scroll down a little, this is also pretty important information. So this is where an applicant would self-disclose, if they have ever been like received institutional action, so like academic integrity violations and that sort of thing. They are expected to self-disclose any misdemeanors or felonies. We will do background checks on all the applicants who we issue acceptances to. But they are, like I said, expected to sort of like give us that heads up first. You can see their military service status as well as like if they've ever applied for medical school previously or if they've ever matriculated anywhere else. This academic record tab is where you will see a full list of all of the courses that an applicant has ever taken at like the post-secondary level. So as you can see, it's pretty lengthy. They have to enter, like I said, everything in, and AMCAS verifies all of these pieces of information. So the applicant has to submit all of their academic transcripts, even if they like took a course at a community college and withdrew, they are expected to like submit that so it can be verified. So again, a couple of different pieces of information here, like where the course was taken, at sort of like what stage did they take it at? So were they considered a freshman? Were they considered a senior? When they took the course, what term? You can see the course class. We'll talk about that more in just a second with the GPA calculation, but this is important for how AMCAS like categorizes things and then calculates their GPAs. And then over here is where you can see their course hours and their grades. The OT hours and the OT grade is the information that the student enters themselves. So when they're going through line by line, they will enter in like, I got an A in computer science, and this is how many credit hours it was. The AMCAS grade and the semester hours are what is verified. So again, after those transcripts are submitted, AMCAS will verify those pieces of information. And you can see over here on the right-hand side under this verification column, you can see like, this is correct, so nothing needs to be changed. Or if it is incorrect, it will need to be updated. And that should automatically push through to AMP. It updates about every 15 minutes from AMCAS. So after the applicant has self-corrected that, you will see that reflected here as well.
I just want to make a note, if I can interrupt you for a second, Alex.
Yeah.
Just because it says that there's a change required doesn't mean the student is trying to be deceptive. Sometimes the way a school lists a grade isn't compatible with AMCAS and the way AMCAS would list that grade. So it doesn't necessarily mean the student's being deceptive or they're trying to falsify a grade. So I don't want you to read it that way. I don't want you to see these ones that say change required and think, oh, look, the student put that in wrong, 17 times on this one transcript. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means most of the time, I have had it happen where the student was trying to be deceptive, but most of the time it means that just the way the school's grading system was and the way AMCAS calculates things didn't line up. And so what happens is AMCAS reaches back to the student and asks for that little part at the bottom of the transcript that says like how they calculate the grades or whatever, and confirm that this is correct. And then the student confirms it and it goes, like she said, every 15 minutes, that's re-updated. So I just don't want you to read it like they're being deceptive.
That is an excellent point. And if you're ever interested in learning more about like the academic record or like the GPA calculation and all of that good stuff, AMCAS has some really like phenomenal resources. Even just reading it from the applicant perspective, and I'm sure the loads of free time that y'all have, I think is really helpful context to know like how this is functioning and like what applicants are doing and seeing and all of that good stuff. This
Alex, I
education,
think I'm
yeah,
sorry. I'm
no, go
sorry.
ahead.
Dr. Salim is trying to see, I guess he wants to know where did you get to this area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to walk us like all the way back. So after you have logged into AMP, you should have access to this screen tab on the left-hand side. And then you should all have like a test applicant in here. And then after you have navigated to this screen page, you're going to click the view button that's on the left-hand side under the form column. And that will pull up like that detailed view of the applicant profile. And then to get to the AMCAS application, we click into the AMCAS detail under the application header, you click this view button. And I'm happy to go back through that again. There are so many things to click on in AMP, y'all. I would love for there to be fewer buttons.
You say he got it, Alex. I'm sorry.
Okay, beautiful. Unfortunately, I cannot change how many buttons there are. So going back to this AMCAS application, again, we're in that detailed view. This education summary tab is going to push you to see like their secondary school and their post-secondary information. Probably not going to be like super concerned with any secondary school stuff at this stage, but their post-secondary information, you can see where they attended here on the left-hand side. If it was their primary undergraduate institution, so maybe they took some courses elsewhere or they transferred in, something like that. You can see the dates that they attended, what the level was, so undergraduate, post-bac, graduate, etc. If they had a major or minor, when their degree was or is expected to be awarded. That one I think is a little easier to read. So clicking into this GPA tab, we include some of these GPA calculations into the final rank calculator. So this first column here is the BCPM GPA, and that stands for biology, chemistry, physics, and math. So when we were looking at that academic record earlier, you can see that course class here. So anything that's categorized in that acronym is what you will find is being calculated in that GPA. So if you ever want like a point of reference for like, where did they get that from? Again, AMCAS has a really great breakdown of how the GPAs are calculated. I was an English major, so I just trust but verify, you know. Again, you can see a breakdown by like year, so to speak, right? So we can see the calculation of their freshman year courses. We can see sophomore, junior, senior. This is a static test environment, right? So as you can see, there's no like change in their GPA. When we have real students, there will likely be changes in whatever direction across this. So that's also just something to like maybe take a look at. And then again, like the credit hours, if you're interested in how many they were taking, how many factored into that. This AO GPA stands for all other. This isn't something that we take into consideration for like rank or anything, but it may be helpful, again, to contextualize like how well did they do in those courses that fall outside of like the science category. And then finally, this total GPA is sort of like the combination of all of their like science and math courses and all of what falls into all other, a very broad category, is their total GPA. And again, you can see this cumulative option here at the bottom. This is what we are pulling into the final rank calculator. So we look at the BCPM and the total GPA. So if you're, again, thinking about that preliminary rank, this is part of where that's coming from.
And you all can see that that candidate in particular doesn't have any graduate level coursework, but the
Yeah.
graduate level coursework is not included in the cumulative GPA. As we know, master's degrees and higher, the grades are generally much higher. You're not typically failing or doing poorly in graduate level work. So in that cumulative calculation that we use for BCPM or total GPA, the graduate work is not included in that.
Yeah, thank you for that note. Because candidates will also receive points if they have like a doctorate, if they have a master's, they do get like a couple of extra when we're looking at that rank calculator. So they get sort of a lift there in other ways. The MCAT tab is where you can see all of the times that a candidate has taken the MCAT. You can see, like I said, the test date, you can see their total score, you can see their percentile, and then you can see how that compares like to other applicants. Obviously, again, this is a test environment, so we don't have a ton of applicants in here right now, so this will look different when we go live. You can also see if a candidate maybe like is displeased with this 503. They can tell AMCAS, I am planning to take the MCAT again at this date. And again, that is something that will, after they've taken that exam and those scores have been published, that will push through to AMCAS and it'll refresh here. And again, if you want like a breakdown of, what like section and what their score was on those individual pieces, you can see that as well.
And in our minimum requirements, I'm sorry, Alex, I keep interrupting you.
That's okay. It's okay.
In our minimum requirements, we have MCAT greater than or equal to 500. And we calculate that, or the MCAT that they pull is the highest MCAT in the last 3 years. So you may see other MCATs here that fall outside of that range, either higher, but it's too old, or lower than the 500, but that one wasn't pulled, so.
Yeah, thank you for that. You can stop me at any point. As I'm sure y'all can imagine, with 28 days to go, there's lots of balls in the air right now, folks. Clicking into this experience tab. So we talked about the timeline view earlier that you can access from that like detailed applicant profile. But this will break down by category what the applicant has entered into their application. So AMCAS uses these sort of like broad nets to categorize applicants' experiences. So you can see part of that includes like community service that is further separated out into like medical and clinical service versus not. If they have paid employment, etc. You can see the dates through which they completed that, how many hours they did. If they plan to do the experience in the future, they can add that as well. There's contacts, so if you do have questions about what the experience entailed or that sort of thing, they will, in the live environment, have to give a description of the experience. It's usually relatively brief, but it'll sort of break down like what they did, etc. And you will need to come back to this tab when you are evaluating the secondary application, like when you're going through the rubric, which we'll talk about more later. And then finally, the personal comments tab. Again, this is a test environment, so there's no real essays in here. But when we have real applicants, this will be where their personal statements will be. So encourage you to take a look at those. They do cap the character limit, so it can only be so long. But again, this is where those personal statements will populate. I know that was kind of a lot of information. Are there any questions about the AMCAS detail, how to navigate that? Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't see names. But I see somebody has their hand raised.
Okay, I'll go. So we are going to have like a rank calculation already,
Yes.
right? And so is that rank calculator that we are seeing based on what we agreed on the last meeting?
Yes, yeah, that was
Okay.
what y'all voted on. I believe The new one has been loaded into the test environment. So yes, that is based on what y'all voted on and everything. And if I think that is in the Canvas course, Becky, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So if you do need like a refresher on what those categories are and the point values, that will be accessible to you there.
Okay, so then a lot of this is then actually already accounted for in the rank calculator, right?
Yeah.
So what are the things, because I think what's more detailed is the academic record and the personal statement. That seems to be more of the detail than what the rank calculator will draw upon. So I'm trying to understand how we are going to, or are we going to set a rubric that's standard for all of us to use this information in addition to the rank calculator if it's duplicative?
Yeah, that's a great question that I will address in like 2 seconds. I love this segue. It's a great segue to us talking about like the rubric and stuff. This, like the personal comments and some of this information is not necessarily something that like you are going to be scoring an applicant on, right? But it's important to view their file and like those pieces that are missing from the rank calculator, like you mentioned, like the personal statement. Applicants tend to put a lot of effort into those. It's like, well, they answer like, why do I want to be a doctor? So again, it's just good context. And when we're looking at other pieces of the rubric, there will be other pieces to refer back to. So that's a great question.
I'm just going to add to it a little bit. This,
Yep.
Dr. Patil, this rank calculator that you can see at the very, very beginning, Alex, if you could go back to that very first
Yep.
place where the preliminary rank calculator is. Yep, right there. So that rank calculator is only the academic and the regional index that you guys chose. So remember, the academic is their MCAT GPAs, if they got any awards, if they have any publications, et cetera. So that's the academic. And then the regional index was the zip code they grew up in, if they went to high school here, if, et cetera. So that was the regional index that you guys agreed on. What Alex is going to show you next is the secondary rubric, or the rubric that you all are going to use to do the third section of that rank calculator. So you all are doing the first 2 sections already calculated. They're already here. You're correct. Pretty objective. But again, to get a whole feel for the candidate when you're filling out this next rubric, that's where admissions committee's input really comes into playing into that final rank calculator. How you score them on this next rubric she's going to show you is the third index of the final rank calculator. And then the fourth index is their interview. So this is really, it's a little more than half. It's 980 out of 1,400 points. So you get kind of a good idea. This one obviously isn't right because we don't have all the information on this candidate because it's just a test candidate. But a real candidate, maybe they're pretty close to 980, or maybe they're only at 200. So yeah, you're going to be able to get sort of a feel for where they are. And I would say if they're at the lower end of that range, we probably need to do a much more holistic review of their file because maybe they have other things that aren't caught in the rank calculator for us. Does that make sense?
So we are kind of like, so there's other parts of, because this is really pretty much like yes, no, and so I guess I kind of was overwhelmed with the amount of information in that individual GPA breakdown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with all this information? So
No, when we do the last training session, we're going to tie it all up with a pretty little bow. So if you think about the very end of things, if we go all the way to the end and we think about that rank calculator and the discussion that we have, there's an evaluation form you're going to fill out. So here's their rank. Here's what I thought of them and their essays and their ability to write. Here's what the interviewers thought of their communication skills. Here's, they did have 6 colleges listed. They tried different colleges before they went on. You're going to get a more holistic picture of them at the very end. We're just doing the first little piece of admissions committee work today. And then next, in 2 weeks, we're going to do another chunk. And in 4 weeks, we're going to do another chunk. So that's sort of, we're building Lego blocks right now. So.
Yeah, and you don't have like, some of those tabs are not going to be applicable at this stage. Like I would say, like you probably don't really need to pay too much attention to like their identifying information or this additional information tab. Like that's probably not something we're necessarily concerned with at this point. But again, if you're just looking for more detail too, this is a really helpful screen to navigate to. And like I said, there will be a point in the secondary evaluation where you will need to navigate back to this experiences section. So it's just important to know like some of these pieces, how to navigate. I did get a little bit ahead of myself. We do need to look at the secondary application, but this will be relatively brief. So to navigate to the secondary application that the applicant filled out, again, we're on this sort of like detailed view of their profile. You just click this view button on the left-hand side, and that'll pull up the secondary application that the candidate submitted. So this first landing page that you're on are those 2 questions that y'all approved a couple of weeks ago related to their values and their academic and professional skills. These are 200 words or less, so these should not be relatively brief. They can't enter more than that. Candidates can use AI. We adopt the AAMC sort of like stance of like they can use it to proofread or to like brainstorm a little. But it's not supposed to be used to like generate an essay, right? So if the candidate has used AI at any point in this evaluation, or excuse me, application, they are supposed to describe how they used it below. This proficiencies tab is where the candidate will align the coursework that they have taken with the proficiencies that we are asking them to demonstrate. So they will see like a column that fills in all of that coursework that they entered into AMCAS, and they will sort of drag and drop those courses into the relevant proficiency. They cannot use a course more than once. They can add 0, and the maximum is 3. You can see a couple of different pieces of information here. With like real candidates, you'll see like the semester and the year that they took the course. You'll see like the course title. You'll see how many credit hours the course was and what their final grade was as well. We encourage candidates to use like their most relevant and their most like successful courses. But if we come down to the bottom here as well, if they have like they feel like they're missing coursework, but they have an experience that they feel is really aligned with these proficiencies, they can list that in this text box at the bottom, and they can say, you know, for quantitative reasoning, I did this experience with this thing. So this is, again, the coursework will automatically populate, but they have to fill this out if they feel there's a gap.
Yeah, so I just want to add again in this space, the magic that AMP does for them is it pulls their whole transcript into a little drag and drop box. They see quantitative reasoning. That's the top one on this screen right now. They look through their coursework and they say, oh, I took calculus. I can pop that over there. Oh, I took statistics. I can pop that over there. Oh, it says 3. I don't really have a third that's quantitative reasoning. Oh, but I took a logic course. I'm going to put my logic course in there so that I have 3 things filled out there. Well, is logic really quantitative reasoning? Probably not. That's when you can actually go back to that transcript, that whole list of courses, and see where it's categorized. If it's categorized as a math class, a logic class with math, a math logic, then yes, that one actually does count for that. If it's a rhetoric logic class, then that's not quantitative reasoning, right? So you can kind of start to see how the candidate is filling out this form based on their experience. So it gives you a chance to get inside their head a little bit. Are they just trying to fill in the boxes, or are they really being mindful of what we're looking for them to show us on this? And then maybe they don't have a third one, but you scroll down to the experiences and you say, oh my gosh, they worked as a CPA for a long time. Well, yeah, they have quantitative reasoning. I see that now. They don't necessarily need 3 courses. They worked as a CPA. So they're probably okay with quantitative reasoning. So that's going to help us score the rubric. And she's going to show you the rubric in a few minutes. There's a part of the rubric is about their proficiencies. So that's this page of their application. So you can kind of get an idea of if they were being mindful of what we were asking for, because the rubric is going to ask you to score 1, 2, 3. Well, 3 would be easy if all we did was scroll down and say 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay, because they had 3 courses in each one. But what if one of those courses doesn't make any sense for that proficiency? Then you can score them as a 2 or a 0 if they don't have any courses in there that don't, they put courses in, but they don't match the competency. I hope that made sense.
And candidates do get a lot of this information in advance, like they get instructions if they're invited to complete the secondary. They can see this on the website, and they'll see this in Guidebook, the app that Kiana has worked very hard on. So they are sort of prepared to input this information as well. The last few boxes are things that they just can't move forward without. They have to attest to the technical standards, so I understand them. I can meet these technical standards with or without reasonable accommodation, and I know who to reach out to if I do need those things. There is a non-refundable $100 application fee. And then finally, they just sort of attest to the fact that like this is all accurate and true, and if this isn't true, that there may be consequences down the road. Any other questions about the secondary application, how to get here, how to navigate? I'll take that as a no for now. So we are going to navigate back to this candidate profile to go through the rubric. So the screening form will sort of populate down here at the bottom. You can change where this is. So if you are somebody who wants to see it at the very top of this candidate profile, you can. You can like pop it out into a new window if you want to. So you, however works best for you. I'm going to pop this open so that we can sort of split the screen here. Y'all are going to watch me struggle to do this like I don't do it all the time. So you can usually split your screen if you're not familiar by sort of like pulling your tabs out. And there's usually like a little arrow that comes up that lets you resize it. I think if you're on like Windows, a nice little like box comes up for you to like pop it in there. But highly encouraged keeping the secondary rubric on like one screen or one side, and then their actual like application, which again, we can access here on this view button to go through their information. Can y'all see both the rubric
No,
and?
We can only see one.
Uh-oh, see, let me reshare. Let me reshare. I thought I hit window. That's okay. I'm struggling tonight, y'all. It let me do this earlier, and now it won't let me show both. That's cool. That's okay. Well, I will reopen this in here, and we will go through it together. If you need to like open it in a new tab, you can, but we're just going to keep it here because technology is not my friend this evening.
And this is why I like 2 monitors. If you have 2 monitors, I would strongly recommend you use 2 monitors.
Yes, it makes life a lot easier. So you don't have to fumble through splitting your screen like I did. This values essay, you can see that the rubric that y'all voted on is populated here and includes like the criteria. It includes what you're looking for that column, and then that sort of like scoring system from 0 to 2. It is relatively like straightforward, I think, to fill out. You know, when we're reading the candidate's essay and you think, well, I think that they do have a very clear and thoughtful understanding of the mission, so I'm going to give them a 2 there. Or I think they didn't have a ton of relevant examples, so that's a 0. And you'll see at the bottom, AMP will sort of automatically update your total score. So you don't have to keep track of that yourself. The academic and professional skills essay, again, same sort of concept. it fills in the sort of like criteria, the scoring for you, and then you just sort of evaluate, click the button that aligns with what score is up here. Just gonna pop these in for the sake of examples. This is where those course proficiencies that Dr. Wise was mentioning come in. So sort of evaluating, they had 3 courses listed for living systems, but only 2 are really pertinent or relevant, so on and so forth down the line here. And then finally, we look at their experiences. So this is where you will need to navigate back to their AMCAS detailed application that we walked through earlier. Again, that's at the top, excuse me, at the top of the page here. And then we navigate to this experiences tab where you can see, again, the breakdown of what the applicant has entered. So for example, this applicant was a mental health interpreter, and they did that for 100 hours. That sounds like human behavior to me. So you would look at how many hours they did. That's a 2. So we'll fill that in down there. And then finally, again, you'll see that AMP will give you the total score for the secondary application that is later factored into their final rank calculator. A couple of other pieces to review are their AI disclosure statement. So did they appropriately use AI or not? You do have to put something in this box. So if you don't have any notes, just give it like an NA. Reviewing that preliminary rank, which is up here at the top, we can see that this candidate has a 460. So maybe that's like a little too low for your comfort, right? You can make note of that there. You can highlight they had a really great score. And if not, you have no comments. Just put in that NA so it'll let you submit. And then finally, AMP will do an AI generated summary that I will show you here in just a second. If there are any positives or concerns from that candidate summary, you can, again, make note of this here, or if not, just leave it blank or put in the NA. The reason we do not have a live quote unquote AI generated summary right now is because AMP needs like real candidates to generate that information. It can't do it in the test environment. So once we are doing this live, you will see like a real version of this. So to just really quickly take a glance at this sample AI summary, and I'm going to zoom in on this. You can see there's a lot of information here. We sort of asked them to generate things based on our mission statement, based on our rank calculator. You can see it gives you a lot, like I said, a lot of information. So it'll again break down like their GPA for you. This makes note like they attended a Title I high school, but they were medically underserved. They speak multiple languages. So this will be relevant to what, like I said, our mission, our rank, all of those things. This is just a sample. There will be a competency analyzer. This graph is like so small, a little hard to read right now, but again, this will be in the live environment. So you will get a better look at it then. And then your final step in this.
I'm sorry, can I
Yeah.
add one more thing?
No, go right ahead.
This AI summary, as the candidate is not allowed to use AI to write anything, they're allowed to use it for brainstorming. We are also not allowed to use AI. As part of FERPA, we cannot take any portion of the applicant's file and put it into an AI for any reason. So even if you were to cut and paste their essay and that rubric and put that into chat and try to have it do it for you, that's actually against FERPA. We're not allowed to do that at all. So the only way we are allowed to use AI is this AI paragraph that comes from AMP itself. So just so that you're aware that it is actually illegal for us against federal policy to use AI to evaluate a candidate's file, except for that AI generated thing by AMP. So, okay, sorry, thank you.
No, that's a fantastic note to make. And I don't know if that sample is in Canvas, but we can certainly like get it loaded for y'all if you want to like take a look at it in the sample. The final sort of step in this is, do you want to invite them to an interview or not? So you have the option of yes, no, or hold. Hold should be used very, very sparingly, only in cases where you are like, I absolutely cannot make a decision about this because I need like more information. Otherwise, if you are doing like a no or a hold, you have to provide your reasoning down here. If it's a yes, this is not required. And then you have the option to either save or submit. So you don't have to do this all in one sitting, right? You can always click this save button and come back to it later. You can see AMP up here is telling me like this has been saved, but it's not done because I didn't tell it if I wanted to invite to an interview or not. When you are done filling out the rubric, you feel good to go, you can click this submit button and it'll be marked as done. The applicant can go to the next stage. If you submit the rubric, it generally like disappears from your view. So if you ever like make a mistake, or like you need to make a correction on your rubric, you can reach out to like myself or any member of the admissions team and we can unsubmit that for you and sort of put it back in your fort. But otherwise, if you feel good about it, you can press the submit and it will finalize and you will be good to go. Any questions about the rubric?
I'm going to jump in there for 1 minute since you just said something that triggered in my head. You admissions committee members are likely to have a number of candidates to review at a time. So there might be 5. I'm hoping we don't have to send you 10 at a time. That's a lot, but you might have several. And if you hit submit and then decide to change something, but you can't remember the candidate's name, we have to unsubmit all of them for you from that week so that you get back to the right person. So just make a note of the name or the ID number of the candidate you're working on at the time, just in case you decide you need to make a change later. We can unsubmit just the one file and not that whole week's files for you, because that'll just, then you'll have to go back and resubmit them all, and that would be kind of a pain. So, and the other note that I'll make is this seems really labor intensive right now, but I promise once you get used to it and you get in the habit of it, you should be able to run through this rubric in about 15-20 minutes. It shouldn't be that long. It's going to be until you learn where the clicks are and how to fill the things out. But once you get rolling with it, it's going to go much faster. I see Elizabeth has a question.
Yes, I have 2 questions. The first one is about what should we be using for that final question about interview or not? Are we taking in the whole collective application or like the score, or how should we approach that question?
So that's this rubric. This rubric should help you narrow down whether we want to interview that candidate or not. Remember, we're doing sort of 3 levels of selection, right? So our first level is that minimum competencies or minimum qualifications, right? So do they have the minimums? Great. They are then invited to fill out the secondary. That's all an automated process you all don't have to worry about. Once they've filled out the secondary, now we have this pool of candidates. So we went from hopefully 2,000 candidates, maybe to, I don't know, 1,000 candidates. I'm using round numbers. I have no idea if that's real. Maybe 1,000 candidates send us secondaries. That gives me heart palpitations because that means we have to read 100 or 1,000 secondaries. But if we get that many, then we have to read secondaries. Then we have to invite those people to interview, right? So we're like narrowing the focus. And then maybe there's 500 we invite for interview. And then of those interviewed, we're going to select, we're probably going to end up accepting around 100, 150 people total in order to seat the class of 64. So it's sort of a funneling effect, right? So I would tell you at this stage, just focus on this rubric, because if you go through this rubric and you think, hey, this looks like a decent candidate, I would like to hear more about them. Yes, I will interview them. Or if you look and you say, you know what, that person couldn't get higher than a C in a biology class to save their life, they're probably not going to be successful in medical school. I don't think we need to spend our time interviewing them.
So how heavily should we weigh that score? It says max score of 50.
That's just the score. that score goes into that final rank calculator. So that I wouldn't objectify to that level. I wouldn't like make like 47 to 50, yes, invite, or 30 to 50, yes, invite. I wouldn't objectify it that way. That score lands back on the final rank calculator. So you're going to
Okay.
revisit that score anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're using this rubric, but we're not using the absolute score at the bottom of it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because it should be a more holistic view than that.
Okay.
So,
Can we
right,
consider the personal statement?
absolutely.
Okay.
Anything that you have available in front of you, you can consider. And then
Okay.
just put notes in there. You know, that's the whole
Okay.
point of putting notes in. If you do say no to it, so if you remember the way we've set this up, if you say no, do not interview, this whole file is going to a second admissions committee member.
Okay.
So you're not the only one saying no to them. So if you say, no, I don't think they're qualified, it's going to go blinded, by the way, to another interviewer. They're not going to see your comments. They're going to be able to make that decision entirely independently on their own. If both reviewers say, yeah, that's not a candidate we want to waste our time interviewing, then they're not going to get an invitation to interview. If either of you say, you know what, I would like to hear more from that candidate, if one person says yes, then they get to move forward to the interview stage.
Okay.
But I wouldn't want to focus solely on that number and say, I'm going to say no to anybody who has less than a 30. I wouldn't go that far with the objectification, because you want to read those essays. You want to read sort of the whole picture of that candidate. So,
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. Now, my second question is about the experiences calculator. So we have to look, if I'm understanding this correctly, we have to look at the experiences pages, and then we have to figure out which category they fit in. And then we have to calculate the hours for each of the categories we're assigning it to. Is that correct?
The hours are calculated. The hours are part of the application.
Yeah,
So
but
the
if they
hours
have
are
more
in there.
than one experience.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
So
Yes.
this part makes, I think, of all of the rest of it seems very straightforward, but this kind of feels like a lot of work and a lot of, trying to figure out what fits where and how many of each, and that could get kind of dicey and subjective. I don't know if there's a way we can make it clearer or make it easier for us, because that's given me a little bit of anxiety.
That's honestly the place where it is going to take, my opinion, it's going to take the most time. Reading the essays and reading those experiences are going to take the most time. Alex, would you show us again the timeline view?
Yeah.
The timeline view makes that a little bit easier, Dr. Geniak, so you can see this timeline. You can kind of see like an overview of their experiences real quick. So if it's a really long bar, then they've got, a ton of experience in that. It's gone in that one black bar there is, 4 years, because that's their college. But if you can see, a shorter bar maybe isn't as much. And if you highlight that, you can get more details, or you can scroll down on this page and get more details. So it does help a little bit to have this timeline view.
These categories are weird though, like living systems. Like, what does that mean? And like, what is, I don't know.
Agreed.
Like, I don't even know what to put there.
And that's where, we do have a little bit of subjectivity in this rubric. And that's why, again, like I said, that final number at the bottom, I wouldn't objectify it that far, because there is some subjectivity to this rubric. But what we have landed on is that we're not mandating specific coursework, and we're not mandating specific experiences. So there is some subjectivity to these. Now you can imagine if it's a 18 Delta, Army medic specialist who, did 3 tours in Africa, they probably have a lot of living systems, right? They put people back together for a living. Or if they're a paramedic, I would say that's a lot of living systems. But if they're in a chemistry research lab, maybe not very much living systems. And they won't all have everything in every category. So that's okay too.
Maybe what might be helpful? Can you guys like give us like a a primer of like what types of experiences count for each of those? Because like
Yeah, we
I
have
just
that.
okay, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
I think it may be in the admissions committee handbook, but I'll find it. I'll make a note to
Okay.
myself to share that back out.
Perfect. That would make it a lot easier to try
Yeah.
and categorize these.
And
No
I
worries.
would also maybe add, and Dr. Wise, you can correct me if this has changed, but unlike the coursework category, experiences can count for like multiple buckets. So something for living systems can also be counted for human behavior or like quantitative reasoning, if that makes it, I don't know if that makes it easier or if that makes it worse, but we can certainly send you those examples.
I see Dr. Patel has her hand up as well.
Sorry, I just so I'm just backing on like what Dr. Ginnak asked. So for our yes, no for the interview is basically the things that are not being caught by the rank calculator. So we're not looking at this total rank at all. We are really looking at what does this person look like based on all of these other things that we are grading. Is that
Yes. I at this stage, I wouldn't be super objective. Again, we're coming back to this candidate with an interview. We're coming back to them with the final rank and the
Mhm.
final evaluation at the end. And then we're all going to talk about them in our admissions committee meetings. So there's plenty of time for us to get super objective with these folks. But we want to have, like I told you in the training, like this is the stage for rose-colored glasses. And then we're
Mhm.
going to get down to our 3D glasses, right? So this is still time for rose-colored glasses. So this is a time to be broad brush. Is this somebody we want to learn more about in an interview or not? So
Okay. Because also I feel like after reviewing 20 people, what might seem impressive at first may not sound impressive at last. Like
right.
because now you have comparison. So.
That's one of those biases in the Canvas course. There is a bias training on there, and that's one of the biases that we have to fight. You have to try. It's so hard, but you have to try to compare that candidate only to our standard ideal and not to each other. But of course, as we see more candidates, our opinions change. And that just is a bias that we have to overcome. And that, honestly, the work that you all did on that final rank calculator is going to overcome a lot of that bias. So we tried to balance those biases as best we could. I mean, we've worked on that final rank. We've worked on this whole process for 2 years. And that final rank calculator has been in the works for a year. And then you all have had it. The preliminary committee, the precursor admissions committee had this since the beginning of April. And I think what we've landed on now really does a good job of going back and offsetting some of those biases that we end up developing over the course of a cycle. But I'll honestly tell you too, the beginning of an admission cycle is very different than the end of an admission cycle. And candidates know that. And candidates know to try to apply early and get in there early. This year, we're all at a disadvantage at this school because everybody's already out there. We're going to get them all dumped in our lap at one time.
Okay,
But
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And Dr. Geniak, to follow up with you, it is in the admissions committee handbook, but I'll separate that page. Yeah, I'll pull that page out separate and make that a separate document so that everybody can refer to that.
Or is there, I'm looking at the thing, is there space to actually put it in there? Like, can we put them in small words in there so that it's right there for us?
I don't know, Alex, is that possible?
Do you mean like in the rubric itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly reach back out to our software person on the AMP side because I'm sure that would be a great tool. I will also note that there is this like reference materials tab. So if we aren't able to do that at this stage, I will also go ahead and add it to this reference materials page. So at the very least, you won't have to navigate out of AMP to access that. It will be right here for you.
Yeah, in the handbook or whatever it is where I just found it, it makes it much clearer what goes in what category. So the fine print is very helpful.
That's a great idea, Alex. If they can't add it right to the rubric itself, putting it in that resources is a great idea.
I have to write things down, y'all, or it's like we never had this conversation. Any other like questions about the rubric, about AMP, about anything we've covered? I know this was a lot of information. And I will note, like, we'll do more practice with this later. But if you do have any like questions, you want like a one-on-one walkthrough with this, or you want like more test applicants to sort of like practice clicking through things, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to address any like questions you have, or if you, like I said, want more practice before we do that sort of like quote unquote final push, happy to do that for you. Dr. Wise, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was talking and talking. When do we, Dr. Kumi asked a question, when do we consider the academic and regional calculators in deciding when to invite a candidate for an interview? We don't really. Those are for later. Again, this is a time when we're wearing rose-colored glasses. We're going to get those calculations in that final rank. There, it shows as a preliminary rank calculator here, just as honestly as just kind of a reference. Again, if the score is 980 is the maximum score you can get on those two categories added together. And if you have a candidate who's at, a 980, wow, well, that's something to perk your ears up, and you're going to read their file differently than if somebody only has a 200 there, right? It's just a way for you to kind of set your mood before you start reading their file. But we don't really use that as part of the interview process. When we get further along in the process, that does come into play for sure. But just here, it's just sort of a, isn't that interesting moment, but it's not necessarily anything we actually use to decide if we want to invite them to interview or not. We have enough room for 540 interview slots, believe it or not. So we could interview a whole lot of people. So we want to use that sort of broad brush approach. We don't want to not interview somebody just because they're not from here, for example, or because they, whatever reason. We don't want to non-interview somebody who might end up being a fantastic candidate and fit our mission statement perfectly just because their regional score is lower than we would want it to be. That answer would come later. So I hope that answered your question. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So this recording will go up onto Canvas, like I said. If you haven't been able to get into Canvas yet, let me know and I will work with you to try to get you in there. That is the place where you need to download, sign, and re-upload the conflict of interest and privacy confidentiality statement so that we have that. And we have to sign that every single year. And then we'll put this up on Canvas and you can go back and refer to it, put it on two screens, put the recording on one screen and work through. You should all have at least one sample candidate in there that you can work through yourself and kind of look through things and see how you're going to set up your screen, move your tabs around, all of that stuff, and see how things look for you. And then in 2 weeks, when we meet again on October 2nd, we're going to go through the next part, the after they've had their interview, what does that look like? I will also remind you all that if you are planning on doing interviews, which you all said as a group that you wanted to participate in interviews, there are also interview trainings that start at the end of October. So then we'll go through how to walk through the interview process, but we're not going to cover that for admissions committee meetings. For admissions committee meetings, you're just going to be able to see their interview rubric and their score, but not walk through the interview process. So that'll be in 2 weeks. And then the third training will be on October 16th. And that's kind of going back through all of the AMP screenings and rubrics as a whole set so you can see all of that together. And then the last one, the 30th of October, is a one more chance. We're going to walk through the whole thing start to finish one more time in case you missed anything. So if you missed one of these or you're still confused about something, keep coming to these trainings and we'll work it out. Last chance questions. I'm going to stop the recording, but we're going to stay here for a few minutes if you do need help. Otherwise, feel free to go.
This was really helpful.